Welcome to the fourth of four classes on Excel, Microsoft Excel. This is on graphs and pivot tables. The version of Excel that I'm using is actually Excel 2016. There is a 2019 version, and then there's also Excel 365, which is the subscription format where you subscribe monthly or annually, and you get the very latest version with all the updates, and they're moving to that subscription model from the new releases every few years. And so today we're going to be spend some time with charts and graphs in the first part, and then go on to pivot tables. I've got a couple of different spreadsheets in this Excel workbook. And we're going to start talking about the branch sales with 3 Denver area stores with monthly revenue figures. And then there's a book sales, a similar sort of fictitious book sales by genre table. And then we have an auto inventory for like a used car lot that we'll look at for the pivot tables. So what is a graph? A graph is a visual representation of data. And you've probably seen graphs on the news and in financial reports, and they're very, very commonly used. So if I want to add a graph to this, I'm going to go ahead and maximize this screen. You want to be sure. So, well, a quick review first. We're going to, we've been mostly working on the Home tab in this class, in this series. And then today we're going to be doing more in the Insert tab. And I'm also going to point out that what we call contextual tabs, which when you add a pivot table or a chart, which is another word for a graph, you get a new tab on the ribbon for that element. So you get a chart tab on the ribbon or pivot table tab, or they both have a couple of tabs that come with it. So when I go here to insert a chart, I'm going to click on recommended charts. If I don't have any data selected, then it's going to create a blank chart because there's no data. So you want to be sure to click on your data, anywhere on your data, and then click on the recommended charts. And Excel is really good at guessing what type of thing you want, and the recommended charts are pretty good. You can also just click over here. There's 2 little tabs at the top of this dialog box that says all charts, and that gives you a good summary of the different types. The main chart types to keep that you'll be using most likely will be column, line, pie, or bar charts. And in recent versions of Excel, they've added even more kind of esoteric types of charts, and we're not going to be working with any of those, but you can always Google topics on Excel. There's a ton of YouTube videos available, and also Microsoft's own help pages are really useful for getting a summary. If you just take a name of one of these types of charts and Google Microsoft waterfall chart, for instance, and one of the first links should be to Microsoft.com with their help pages, and you can read all about those different kinds. So let's just go ahead and insert a column chart. It's maybe the most common chart that you would use, and I'm just going to click on it, and then we have a chart here. Notice immediately on the ribbon we have a whole new tab on the ribbon, and there's actually 2 tabs here listed under chart tools. And so immediately we can do a number of things to make it look better. I can notice when I move the mouse over the chart, it changes to the 4-way arrow. And as I can interact with any of these elements as well. So the 4-way arrow is the move cursor. So I can click and drag that over here closer to my data. And I can also use these circles around the edges. Notice when I mouse over them, each one gives you a double arrow going in different directions. The corner ones go diagonally, which means you can change 2 dimensions at a time, and then the ones on the edges go just either horizontally or diagonally. So I can let's go ahead and use the real estate we have here and make the chart bigger so it's more readable. So there's a whole number of chart elements. Some of them are on by default, and some of them you can add, and you can take some of these off as well. There's a couple of different ways to do things with Microsoft Office, and this is no exception. I'm going to focus more on these buttons here next to the chart, but you have the same functionality pretty much up here in the ribbon. There's a add chart element button on the top left of the ribbon, and you have this plus sign here that says chart elements, add, remove, or change chart elements, and that gives you a list as well. So the add chart element shows a list. You get pretty much the same list with the plus sign over here. One of the easiest things you can do is to select a preset chart style. So you may notice as I'm not clicking on anything, but as I move my mouse over each example, our actual chart changes to give you a preview of that chart style. And some of them have added elements. And these are all things that you can add separately from these plus sign here or in the chart element here. So I'm just gonna, and then there's these drop down buttons let you give you more options, even more options. So there's a wide variety. And let's just pick one of these others. So this is one that has data labels. Notice I might click the plus sign over here. There's a data labels checkbox. Those are kind of hard to read. I'm not really happy with those. So I'm going to go ahead and uncheck the data labels box, and they just immediately disappear. So those are some easy things that I can do This dark one is pretty nice. One of the things that you're probably going to want to do is to change the title, and notice that that is one of the elements that's on by default. Here is the chart title, and if I click there, I can actually just delete that element and it'll go away. I'll do that. And you see the chart expanded to fill the space. Now, if I change my mind, I'm going to come up and use the undo button on the quick access toolbar here. I can also use Control Z, the keyboard shortcut. And that tells me when I mouse over that undo button, it says undo change style, Control or parentheses Control plus C. Control Z will undo that. So I got my chart title back. I have to either double click on that or click and drag to highlight the title to put in a new title. And so I'll just go ahead and type in branch revenue 2020. Let's take, and I don't have to hit enter or anything. I can just click away and it will save that title for me. So another thing I can do, if I right click on an element, I've got some other options here too. So I can, let's say I want this text to be a little bigger or bolder. I can select that and then go to my home tab and hit the increase font size, and that will change that. I could bold that text if I want to make it stand out. I could do the same thing with the x-axis down here with the months. I can also right click and click Format Axis, which brings up this sidebar on the right. I can still make changes to the text on the Home tab here. And because I have that box selected, anything I do up here is going to apply to that as well. So I can make those a little bit bigger, more legible. I could even maybe spread this out a little more. And then, so now I notice that I'm on the Home tab here, but there's still the Chart Tools tabs over here, the Design and Format. In order to get back to them, I just have to click on those. Next to this Chart Styles group here with the preset styles, there's a Change Colors. So you have some preset color choices, or different, what we call palettes. So there's a little bit of a range, and then there's a bunch of monochromatic options. There's one in black and white, and then all the different monochromatic with different shades, just like the black and white, but using a different color. We'll go back to the default colors. So let's see, any other of these elements that I want to look at. So I can, as I mouse over the data table, you see it adds a table actually below. I mean, I guess I have to click on it to move the mouse. it's kind of busy, but that's an option. And then there's an arrow to the right of each of these elements that gives me other options. I can include legend keys, which is those colors. That's useful. I can click on more options for this format data table thing, and can do different formats. I can change colors as well. So I think that data table is a little busy, so I'm going to uncheck it and it goes away. I can decide, you know, I don't really want all the numbers and texts around the edges. I just want a simple graph with just the legend, so that to show the colors. So I'm going to uncheck the axes, and then they go away. And then now this legend is really pretty small, so I'm going to go back to the Home tab and increase that font size so that it's much more visible. Now that's a nice visual display. And then it can say, let's say I was doing this for work and my boss said, oh no, you have to have the labels on the side, the axis, and it's the checkbox for the axes. So it's okay, we'll put that back. And then, then he says, oh, I don't like these lines behind here. Can you take those grid lines out? And that's one of the choices over here too. So I can uncheck that, take the grid lines out. Gives a cleaner look. And then let's see, I often I can just click on the table here and hit delete and get rid of it. And then we can try another chart style, but I'm gonna click the undo button and bring that back. I'm just gonna set it to the side and then do another. Let's say your boss comes back and says, I want a pie chart for March. I just need the data for March in a pie chart showing the different stores in a pie chart. So I said, okay, well, one thing that I can do, I'm clicking on this chart to bring up the tabs on the ribbon, but I'm still on the Home tab. The tabs are there, I just have to click on them up on the ribbon. One thing I can do is click on this change chart type, and that gives me the full range of choices. I can just go down and select pie chart and click OK. Another thing I can do, I'm gonna undo, and I'm gonna see if I can just copy and paste a second one. No, I guess it doesn't really do that. Copy and paste. Oh, yeah, it did. Okay, cool. Well, wait a second. Something funny happened. I'm using the undo. I'm actually using Control-Z to undo because something, okay, there, that's better. Now I'm gonna right click, copy, click in the blank space, right click, and click the first paste option. Now I've got two versions of the chart. This second one, I'm going to go back to the chart tools on the ribbon up here, go to the design, and I'm going to change the chart type to the pie chart and click OK. And I don't need quite as much room for this one. And there, now I've got both of them on the page. So I wanted to look at the pie chart with the different sections of the chart representing the stores, but what I've got is the sections of the pie chart showing the months. So luckily there's a good option here on the chart tools on the ribbon in the design tab, which is in the data group right next to these chart styles, which is the switch row and column. And that's the one I need. So I'm going to click that. So it's going to swap. Instead of the stores in the chart, it's going to show, or instead of the month, it's going to show the stores. And that's what I want. So I'm going to go ahead and click that. Oh, and I had the wrong chart selected. Okay, I'm going to use the undo button quite a bit today. That's all right. That's what it's for. So now I'm going to select my pie chart and then click switch row and column data. That's more what I was going for. Now, but is this the right data? I'm going to click the plus sign here. Let me try a different one. It's not telling me which month I have. Okay, I know what. Let's start over. I'm gonna click on my data, insert, pie chart. I'm gonna switch row and column data. There we go. And I can switch to that dark format. And I can move my edges or corners to resize it, make it the same width as my other chart. Now I've got January, but I wanted March. So what can I do? I'm gonna, there's a couple of options. One of them is the select data. Next to the switch row and column under the data group, there's a select data, which lets me check boxes here. But there's also another option. You can have these buttons next to the chart. One of them, the bottom one here, is this filter icon. It's like a funnel. That's the filter icon. And when I click on that, I get a list of the months here, and it tells me you're looking at January. So go ahead and click on March and click apply. Now I've got my March data like as requested. If I go up to the select data, you'll see I have only March selected. If I select multiple months here, it's still just showing me March, because as a pie chart showing the stores, it's only going to be able to show 1 month at a time anyway. But let's say we want to get a bar chart now. Let's see. Oh, one other thing before we do that. I think the data labels might work well for the pie chart. So I'm going to click the plus sign here and then click data labels. Now, I don't know if you can see that, but they're really tiny. I'm going to right click here, go to more options. I mean, I didn't right click. I left clicked the arrow next to the data labels to come down to more options. And then here, I can, the label, instead of the value, I can make it show the percentage. Let's see, now it's got the value and the percentage. If you notice how that there's little 4 corners highlighted on each of these data labels, they're all selected. That's what that means. So if I go to the Home tab right now and adjust the font, it's going to apply it to all 3 of those at the same time. So there I can, let's see, make it bold and make it even bigger. Now maybe it's legible, huh? And let's see, we don't need the value, let's just do the percentage, and let's make it a black text and make it really big so it stands out. Now we can see it good. I don't know if I like the black on the color, but it does stand out. Let's go back to the white. And that's not bad either. Okay, so now we've got a couple of different charts. We've got them looking nice. Let's see, we want to make this what do you call it? The legend. We want to make the legend bigger like we did the other one. Now that's nice and legible. Legible legend. Let's say we came up here. I want to go back to oh, that just undid all my text. Let's undo that, go back. Okay, we'll keep that color, but if we change the chart type again, I can go up to this change chart type on the design tab of the ribbon in my chart tools, contextual tab on the ribbon. It changes based on the context. So when we added the chart, we got the chart tools tabs on the ribbon. That's a contextual tab. That's really important when, see if I click away from that table, that contextual tab goes away because the context is this blank cell. And if I click in my data, I have some other different options, but I'm still not seeing my chart tab. I have to click on the chart to see the chart tools on the ribbon. So I'm coming back up to change chart type. Let's try a bar chart this time. I'm going to click OK. Now I'm going to need to switch the row and column data again. So I'm going to click that button. And now I'm only showing May, April, and March in this group. Let's make that a little bigger. And so I need to select my data, or I can use the filter button here and click select all. So click it twice. I've clicked it once, it turned them all off. Click it again and it turns them on, and I click apply. Now I've got all the months in a bar chart. Now, if we do this way, I don't need this other chart maybe, so I can just delete it. And I've got those data labels on there, but I want to take those off, take them out completely. And I might make this taller. And I can always make my text on the side bigger. So you've got all of those tools on the ribbon that we've got your switch row and column. If you want to swap the rows and the column headings, I can select data. I can check the boxes for the different data. I can change the chart type, and I can change the chart design. You have full control over all of the elements. So are there any questions about charts? If you have any questions at any time, please feel free to just type those into the chat. And my colleague Ken will let me know if I don't see something that's over there, or answer the question for me if he's able. So that's charts and graphs. Let's come back to, let's move on to pivot tables. So what is a pivot table? Actually, before we do that, I'm going to do one more type of chart here. I'm gonna go back to my column chart and resize that. There's one other kind of chart I want to show you, which is this stacked, 100% stacked column. And then click OK. So this is interesting. So notice, instead of 3 bars for the 3 stores on each month, it's separated 1 bar in different with different segments based on the percentage of the whole. So you can't tell which months had more money, but you can see easily which months, you can see which stores had the biggest percentage of each month. So depending on the data that you want to highlight, you can use different types of charts for that. So this shows the 3 stores in relation to each other, not the overall totals. Like which month made the most money, you can't tell, because the top of the chart here is 100%. They're all the same, regardless of the actual number. So if we go back to the regular stacked column and click OK, now you can see that, you know, December looks like it had bigger sales totals than any other one. But in the other one, you couldn't, in the other chart, you couldn't see that because it was just showing the relation of the 3 to each other. Okay, one more example. I think it's one of the best ways to learn with Excel is to find multiple examples of the same function. And so this is a table of book sales for an imaginary bookstore by genre and year. And so I'm going to insert a chart. We've got a table design tab on the ribbon, but I'm going to insert a chart. What kind of chart do you think might work best for this one? Let's go to the recommended charts and see some of the options. Some of these look kind of interesting. I'm going to go with the clustered column chart. Seems like a good choice. I'm going to click OK. I selected one. Now, this one is showing each year as a different color. And each group on the chart is a different genre. So this is an example where I think I want to switch the row and column data. Now I have each group on the cluster, each cluster is a different year. So I can kind of see the progression of time from left to right. And then each color is a different genre. And I like that. I need to make this, the font of the legend bigger again. It seems like a theme here, but it's easily done. And there I go. And I'm going to take out the grid lines. And I like that cleaner look. And I can go and double click on the chart title. Actually, a double click brings up the format on the side. And this would be whether if I wanted like a fill in the background of this box or in a different border. It's just everything is default to white, so that it doesn't really show the box. And I'm going to leave that. I just want to select the text here. So I'm going to, I click first, so I have the little blinking cursor for working with text, and then I highlight my text by clicking and dragging. Then I can bold it. I can increase the font. It's this nice little, the font tools group kind of pops up here when I select the text automatically. I can still go to the Home tab and get my more familiar kind of font group from up here. Oops, I did something I didn't want to. Okay, that's fine. Oh, and I never changed my chart title. And I'll say book sales by genre. Oops, didn't need to hit enter, just click away and it saves it. Now that's looking pretty good. So that's another example. I could try, one other thing I'll show you is one more data type, or chart type rather, which is the line chart. And I'm going to click OK. And I wonder if I can make these. Anyway, those are the lines. So the line chart shows is good for showing up the progression over time. So each line of a different color stands for a genre. So the line shows the movement. It's basically the same data as the bar chart or the column chart. It's just connected the dots, so to speak, to make lines. Okay, that's all we're going to do with charts. And it's time to move on to pivot tables. So this is a chart, or this is not a chart yet. This is a table of car prices and types. So we've got brand, year, type, which is either car, truck, or SUV, model, price, and date received. And if you, using one of the tricks we talked about last time, if I select anywhere in my data and then click Control down arrow, it jumps to the bottom row, and I see that I have 47 rows listed, so that's 46 cars or vehicles, minus 1 for the header row. So if I gave you this chart and said, what's my total value of all my Fords on the lot? And while you're at it, break it down by the type of car. That would take some work to get this, to get that, pull that data out of this chart, of this table. But that's what a pivot table is for. So I'm going to go up to the Insert tab and insert a pivot table. And again, I've got some, I've selected a cell in my data, somewhere in my data. It doesn't, you don't have to select the whole thing because Excel is really good at finding your data. I'm going to click on Pivot Table, and it immediately does a dotted line that's moving around my data. So it did find my data perfectly, and it's given me that indication here of where the data is. Notice that this is an absolute reference from $A, $1 to F47 with the dollar signs, which means it's an absolute reference. And it's going to place the pivot table into a new worksheet, which is fine. That's the default. I'll just click OK. So now this is where my pivot table will go, over here on the left. On the far right, in this sidebar is where I have, this is where I can pivot my data very quickly to get different, pull different stats out of it. There's a list of checkboxes here. And if we go back to my source data, that list is the column headings. Here, going A to F, I've got brand, year, type, model, price, and date received. And then down below here, I've got 4 quadrants where I can drag these headers into the boxes. And the main ones is going to be rows and values. And this may seem really confusing and weird at first, but give us a time. This is definitely one where more examples may help for the concept to kind of solidify in your mind. I'm going to take brand and put it in the columns box. I'm going to take type and put it in the rows box. Now notice over here on the left, I've got columns with Ford and Toyota. Those are the 2 types, or the 2 brands that we have on our lot. And it's got the 3 types that we have in the rows. Now now I need some values to fill in the values here. And for that, the natural choice is the price. And then I click there and let it go. And now I've got numbers in my table. I've got a grand totals for car, truck, and SUV. And I've got grand totals across the bottom for my Fords and Toyotas. So there's the number of Fords, the value of all the Fords on my lot, broken down by type right above there. So I'm going to resize this column to make it a little bigger so that it looks more symmetrical. Notice when I click out of my pivot table, the sidebar thing goes away. And if I click back on it, it comes back here. So this is really powerful, a really powerful tool that lets me take a whole mess of data and pull out summary of it, or all kinds of statistics and unanticipated questions that I can answer with my pivot table. Now, notice too that on the ribbon, I now have a pivot table tools. Since I clicked out of my table, I went back to the Home tab. If I click back on it, you can see the pivot table tools tabs show up again. I have to click on there to see it though. So those are all my commands and different things I can do to analyze my pivot table. And so now let's say your boss said, well, what's the value of how much inventory do we have in 2014 Fords? So one of the things we don't have in any of our boxes is the year. So now the reason it's called a pivot table is because I can pivot this data really easily by dragging. Let's say I can drag the brand from the columns box to the rows box. Now I have the same data, but I've got brand in my rows and then the type in subfields underneath. And now I've got a spot I can put the year over in the columns. And that gives me a further breakdown. I'm going to resize this again to give them some breathing room. Now I've got numbers for brand, type, and year. And I got totals along the side and the bottom. Now, one thing you may have noticed, and if you're like me, it may be bothering you, our numbers are just plain. They don't look like money because there's no dollar signs and no decimal places. We don't need decimal places necessarily, but dollar signs would be nice. So if I go down to the corner here under sum of price, there's a little drop-down menu. Of course, sum of price is what these represent, is what these numbers are. They sum, it's adding up all of the prices of all the automobiles in those categories. If I click the drop down there, there's a value field settings. And another way to get that is to right click in my data, and there's a value field settings here as well. And this dialog box brings up some different ways I can summarize my data. Instead of sum, there's some other options here like count, average, etc. But I also have a number format in the corner, and that's where I can specify can say, this is currency. So let's put some dollar signs in. And I can even adjust the number of decimal places. So I don't really need decimal places. None of these figures have decimals. So I'm going to reduce the number of decimal places to 0 and then click OK. And then I got to click OK one more time. Now my data has a format that's appropriate. That's the dollar. These are it's currency, and so it reflects that. And that, so in addition to the dollar signs, I've got commas for the thousands and millions. Okay, so I can uncheck these boxes and take those out. I can also come over here and click and drag, like the year. I can take it out of the columns and put it, when I take it all the way over here to the area of the chart, you see there's a little X on it, and that's going to delete it. So I can delete everything. Well, I'll leave the sum of price because there's not really any other field that would make sense in the values box but price. But I can take brand down to the columns. I could take year over to the rows, and I could take type under year. And let's see, I can go back. I think I like the best way I like this data is to have the brand above type and then the year in the columns. But you see, just by dragging these around and moving them, I can change my data just instantly and get new figures. Let's take brand and put it in the filters box. That's one we haven't used yet. And watch over here what happens when I drag brand up to filters. So it took it out of the rows here and put it in a box at the top here with the drop-down menu. This is my filter. So I can click on forward, click OK, and my data immediately updates to reflect that. So it's only showing values for forwards. And I've got it broken down by year and by type of vehicle. So I'm going to take brand back to rows. And I'm going to take year and put that in the filters now. So I can change I can select all years, or I can click on 2013 or 2014, since those are the year models that I have on my lot. And it reflects that up here. You can see it says 2013, and the filter icon is showing up in the drop-down menu. To clear the filter, I just select all and click OK. So this is gives me a lot of information, and once you get the swing of it, you can get it pretty quick. From all this data, I just made a few clicks and dragged stuff around, and I got my totals for values for all of my different categories. And I could filter by year, or I could filter by brand. I can swap things around. But you might say, well, what about how many vehicles do you have? And the cool thing about this pivot tables is that it's really not limited by anything. For instance, I can take my price pivot table field, which is of course just a column heading, I can take price down and put another copy of it into my values box. And you see it's not formatted, but wait and see what I do with it. So I'm going to use the drop down here, go to value field settings. Instead of sum, I'm going to select count and click OK. Now I've got a sum of price and I have the count as well. So it doesn't need the number format because it's just the general format is perfect because it's just an integer. I can swap the order of these too, though, by clicking and dragging down here. So, and let's spread that out a little bit. So now I've got my count of price and my sum of price. And just like I changed the format for the sum of price, I can right click on this, go to value field settings. And I can change the custom name. I can customize the name. So I'll just call this count and click OK. That's a little more elegant. And then over here under sum of price, I'm right clicking on that column and selecting value field settings. And I can change the name there to total. Or I can say totals, plural, because there's totals for each category. And click OK. And it always resizes it, just makes it small as it can based on those fields. You can just resize the columns like normal. Remember the selection cursor and the row column width. Change column width cursor lets me do those. Okay, well, actually we can get even more data. Now we have the count and the totals. What about an average? So I'm going to take the price again and bring it down to, let's put the in between the count and totals. I'm going to use the drop down over here this time and go to value field settings and select average and click OK. Now I'm going to go back into that. We need to fix the format. And I'm going to change the custom name to just say average and go to number format, select currency, take off the decimal places, click OK, and OK again. Now I'm going to select all of these at once and resize them so they're all the same width and make it look nice. Now I've got information about the number of vehicles. I have the average price of each category, and I have my total value of the inventory. And I can filter by year by clicking on the different years up here. And notice it automatically updates it and resizes the columns. That's a little annoying, but one of the things that we could do is to make a chart out of this. But before we do that, let me just ask if there's any questions. I think pivot tables are one of the most fun things you can work with in Excel. If you're willing to accept that there are fun things in Excel, it's one of them. Charts is maybe the other one that's kind of fun. That can be fun. But the thing about pivot tables is that you need like a lot of data to demonstrate the power of it. So we could have hundreds of rows here and just as easily still, or even thousands of rows, and just as easily have these summary statistics just easily pulled out. And just to demonstrate exactly what it's doing, I'm going to come back to the auto inventory source data here. I'm going to convert this to a table by going to insert and selecting table. Just as when we inserted the pivot table, it went and found my data. It's got a moving dotted line around my data. My table does have headers, so I click OK. And now I have a table tab on the ribbon. This is another contextual tab. So we've had contextual tabs for the charts or graphs and for pivot tables, and then we have them for our regular tables too. And I'm gonna find some colors that are a little more subtle. And I'm going to freeze my top row here as well so that I can scroll and still see my column headings. So I'm going to view, freeze panes. We did this on the sort and filter class. And I'm going to freeze the top row. Now I can scroll through my data and I can sort it. And let's say I can sort by type by clicking the drop down and sort A to Z. Now I've got my cars all together, SUVs and trucks. I can sort by brand. I could sort first by brand and then by type, which is in effect what I've got here, but I could do that also from the this under my sort and filter group here in the editing group on the home tab. I could do a custom sort, which would sort first by brand, for instance, and then by type. But so to demonstrate what's happening in my pivot table, so for instance, I've got what's the total of my Ford trucks, and I've got it right here in my pivot table. But using the sort and the filter options here, I can get the same value numbers and sort of demonstrate how what Excel is doing behind the scenes virtually instantaneously. So I can come to brand and I can filter for only Fords, click OK. And then I can go to type and unselect all, select truck, click OK. Now these are all my Ford trucks, and I can highlight the price. Now this is something that I haven't covered before, but it's kind of a nifty feature of Excel. When you select a group of cells, there's statistics that show up way down here in the lower, on the bottom towards the right. There's a sum, there's a count, and there's an average. So it gives me all those statistics down here. My Ford trucks, the sum is 267,836. If I go over to my pivot table, I've got a different number. Why is that? Let's see, there's 8. It's counting 8. This is counting 10. Well, that's really odd. Let me clear that filter. Oh wait, let me see. There's a filter on, isn't there? That's the difference. So notice that I've got you see the filter icon in the year drop down here. This is only the 2014. So if I select all, click OK, now my Ford trucks total is 267,836, and that's 267,836 here. So I'm not crazy. Nobody tampered with the data in between steps, but I just had a filter on. And I could apply the same filter here. So we had just 2014, click OK. The same group is selected. Now I have 210,905. If I come back here and select 2014, I got 210,905. So this is sort of what's happening behind the scenes in my pivot table. Here I just did it manually and then highlighted the cells, and I got my sum and my count and my average there. Now I'm going to go in and clear all my filters in my table. Let's see, I don't see the totals you mentioned at the bottom of the page. Oh, okay, well let me see. Let me resize this. Whoops. Resize this window. Let me redo that filter. I've got Fords, trucks, and select the prices. There, can you see the numbers there? They're very small. That's awkward that it didn't show it. Can you see them now? Okay, now you can see them. But apparently when I maximize the screen size, are they covered up now? Or can you still see that? Okay, yeah. So yeah, anytime you go ahead and clear these filters again, if I sort here by type, and then see my cars go down here, and I select all the cars, and I've got my summary numbers down here based on, it automatically adds together the things that I've selected. So all my car value, my total car value is 422,345. Let's come over to the spreadsheet. Well, and I have to take the type and put it above the brand to get the total car values. And it's 248. Oh, I still have my filter on. Let's clear my year filter, and then I have 422,345. And that's what I have here, 422,345. So it's all working like it's supposed to. So another thing, we still have time. So I want to show you something that's called a slicer. And a slicer is something that's here. It's under the filter group on the Analyze tab of the pivot table tools on the ribbon. And a slicer is a visual representation of a filter. So I'm going to insert a slicer here for brand and year. I'm going to do 2 slicers. I'm going to click OK. And So here my visual representation of my filters. This lets me slice my data up the way you do with a filter, but it's just much easier to use. So let me give my data a little more room. So if I click on the year, notice this changes to 2013 automatically. The little filter the filter icon shows up and all my data updates to reflect that. Now I can select my forwards, my 2013 forwards, and get numbers for those. Let me go back in. I'm going to move brand up on top of type again, because I like that a little better. And I'm going to go ahead and add brands to the filters up here so that it shows that when I have the filter on, when I have the slicer selected, you can see what's selected in the filter up here. I'm going to clear my brand filter, clear my year filter, and let me see, I lost, oh, I see, I can't have brand in the rows and the filters. I can only have it one or the other. Well, that's interesting. I didn't realize that, but I guess it makes sense. I still have my brand, I can still have my brand filter by brand using my slicer here. So let me come back to our my PowerPoint. And I'm going to jump down. So there's a summary of everything that we've done. The pivot tables area here. Here's a kind of a visual display of what's happening in my in the pivot table. And let's see, I'm going to let's rearrange this a bit. I'm going to take out some of those extra things and go back to, actually, let me undo. Let's leave the totals and take out the average and the count. And then we'll put the year in the columns. No, we'll put the brand in the columns. Now this should match. Oh, I still have a filter on, that's why. Let's clear the filter. Now I've got on the left what's represented here on the right. So you can see where each category in the quadrants of the pivot table control panel here get translated over to my table here. My values are in the right, in the bottom of my table. I've got my type in the rows, my brand in the columns field, and my year in the filters. So one of the things that's cool, and actually I'm going to uncheck all of these and just start over from scratch and show you something. If I just click brand and price just by checking the boxes. And then year. Well, it doesn't do that automatically, but let me put year in columns. On the Excel, Microsoft Excel pivot table help page, it tells you the default areas for each of the fields. Non-numeric fields are added to rows. So if I check type, it adds it to the rows. That's a non-numeric field. Date and time hierarchies are added to columns. Now, it didn't automatically do that, but it's kind of a natural place for date and time to reside in columns, because then as you read the column from left to right, it kind of goes forward in time. And then numeric fields, of course, are added to values. And that's the only, and this is the way it kind of makes the most sense. Placing the price into a filter, column, or row just wouldn't make any sense. It will let you do it. Like I can drag this over here, and it actually does it sort of, but it doesn't really make any sense. It makes the most sense when I have the price in the values box. Let me undo that. I guess I lost my, yeah, because when I started over, I lost my format, my currency format. So this is a good guide to when you're creating a pivot table. Put your non-numeric fields in the rows, your date and time hierarchies in the columns, and your numeric fields in the values. And you can, let me take year into filters and add the price back into values and change that value field setting to count or average, and click OK. And now I can have multiple versions of summary of my data. So that's pivot tables, and in this PowerPoint, I have some links to books, and there is a good video series that we have on DVD. If you click through this, it's going to open, should open, put it over there. It's loading the catalog here. Oh, come on, why would you? This way. Okay, never mind. There's the, oh, okay, so it opened it in Edge, that's why, okay. But here's the our catalog showing where we have Discover Microsoft Excel 2016, Basic and Advanced, the DVDs available on the shelf here. There's one on pivot tables, and that's available as well. It's a good series. getting multiple versions of the instruction about pivot tables, I think is worth your time if you want to understand it. Another thing I have is some video YouTube links, as well as a link to GCF Learn Free, the Goodwill Community Foundation, and that has lessons in here. On this slide, it's got links directly to the Excel lessons. These are all really good. And I have a total summary here of the different lessons that correspond to the different classes that we had in this series. So their pivot tables there are lessons 27 and 28. If you come down here, you'll see those intro to pivot tables and doing more with pivot tables. It's not the best instruction, only because, I mean, it's very good, but the data set that they use is so small that I feel like you don't really see the full power of it. And that's what I like about this other example from a site called Excel Campus. And they have these videos that are free to view on YouTube. Go ahead and click through one of those. And it says Introduction to Pivot Tables, Charts, and Dashboards in Excel in 3 parts. And it's this site called Excel Campus. And this guy, John, does a really good job. Now, one of the things I'll give you a slight warning about, which is that, not a warning, just to be aware that Excel Campus is a site, and this guy, John, is selling a tool that you can download that's called Pivot Pal. And the last few minutes of each video, he talks about that tool, and you can just skip that part. Each video is about 15 minutes long. And if you go to about 11 minutes in, he starts talking about the tool that he's selling, which is not a bad tool, but you probably won't need it unless you're an accountant or something. And then it's probably worthwhile. I'm not saying it's a bad product, but it's a highly specialized thing. But he does a great job of illustrating a lot of the aspects of charts and pivot tables and dashboards. A dashboard is like a summary page. And one of the, let's see, I've got the intro to pivot tables and dashboards spreadsheet is in this, in my Google Drive folder that I sent to you. So I'm going to download that and open it and show you what he has done and kind of really demonstrates the power of, oops, I didn't mean to do that. Let's do that. Okay. So let me show you the data first. This is sales data, and it's got the important things. There's an order date. There's a customer name and contact information. There's a salesperson field and a region field. And then there's like 26 columns of data. And then for each sale, there's a shipping company, and there's payment information. There's a product name and category, a unit price, a quantity, and revenue, and shipping fee. So from this massive spreadsheet, And then there's a full year of data, and there's like about 30 transactions per month, and by various salespeople in different categories. So he's got all these, each of these pages is a different pivot table, but the dashboard collects all of them into one table, and he's got two slicers here that can divide it up by region or salesperson. And so if you watch, when I click on a region, all of the tables update to reflect that filter. Let's take the region filter off and just do by salesperson. You can see the sales trend for each salesperson just by clicking on their name in the slicer. And it really demonstrates the power of pivot tables. That's about all we have time for. If you need more help, give us a call. My name is Ben. You can call me at 261-8500. And if you need individual help with Excel or any other tech topic that we teach about, if you're learning to use your device or learning other Microsoft Office programs, there are several of us, and we can schedule an appointment. Let me post, lastly, there's a survey link.
And some people were asking how to get a hold of the PowerPoint.
Oh, the PowerPoint is available in that Google Drive folder with the class materials. It's in a PDF format. So let me just post the survey link and then bring up. So you see this, there's two PDFs. One is that handout, and the other one is the Excel graphs and pivot tables PowerPoint in a PDF format. And that's exactly the one that I used there, that kind of gives a summary of what we covered and has all those links embedded in the PDF there at the end. If you come down there, it's the exact same thing. The links are all live. You can just click through on those, and that one you don't have to download to view it. You can just view it in the browser. You're welcome to download it as well as a PDF. And keep a lookout for other classes. If you go to our website here under events, there's a technology classes link, and you can scroll down and see all the technology classes that we have coming up. You can register or join the waiting list for classes that are full, and everything scheduled at least through November right now is on that calendar. Okay, thanks for coming. I'm going to go ahead and we'll see you next time. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording.